Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 7th episode of the story, in which Naruto sets out to discover his true reason for being Hokage. Look out, Ninja World! A new Naruto Uzumaki has arrived. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Naruto leapt from 3 to 3 with 3 genin trailing behind him. It had been a few hours since they had left Konoha and the sun was high in the sky. They had been heading west and the blonde was already noticing the climate change. It was growing a little warmer and he assumed that this meant that they were nearing the Fire Country's border. Beyond this border was a small area filled with rivers that would lead to the Sand Village. Since they had come this far, it was time to change directions. He didn't want to pass the border on accident and get his village in trouble. He knew that he could keep on going, but looked back at his companions. Niji seemed okay while Ino and Choji were panting lightly with some sweat on their foreheads. The Chunin moved his gaze forward and saw a small clearing on the distance. He signaled his team to stop moving as he landed on a branch. "We're going to take a small rest," Naruto informed them with a serious look on his face. "Make sure not to eat anything since we'll be moving in less than an hour and I don't want you throwing up on the way." The 3 genin nodded in understanding. The blonde was a little taken back since he expected some complaints, but dismissed it. "Okay, let's go." The group of ninja went over to the clearing. Ino and Choji had looks of relief on their faces as they made their way to a small stream with fresh water while Naruto and Niji stood next to each other in the middle of the clearing. The Hyuga had his Byakugan active while the blonde crossed his arms and stared ahead with a frown. Niji deactivated his Byakugan and turned to Naruto. "There's nobody around, but there are some traces of chakra around," the Hyuga reported with a pensive look. It was normal to have leftover chakra around environments since battles between ninjas took place almost anywhere. The leftover chakra would disappear after a few days. What was not normal was the type of chakra he had found. From the looks of things, this chakra is not ordinary, it looks different. "How is it not normal?" Naruto questioned, already thinking of what to do with his team if they were in any kind of danger. Niji shook his head and put his hands on his pockets, showing he had no need to be on the alert for now. "I'm not sure, but it feels as if the chakra is tainted, dark even," he explained. "I haven't seen anything like this before, but whatever it was isn't here anymore." Naruto nodded in affirmation. "Rest for now, Niji. We'll be moving soon," he ordered as he moved to sit against a tree. The blonde dug into his pocket and took out a paper and a small brush with some ink. Ever since Jiraiya had taught him the art of sealing, the blonde would always carry the necessaries to practice whenever he had free time. He dipped the brush into the ink before getting to work. On the other side of the clearing, Ino drank water from a canteen, feeling the water cool her mouth and wash away the thirst she had been feeling. Choji sat next to her with his head submerged on the water. He was apparently cooling his head while taking gulps of water. Ino was of course disgusted by this and turned her gaze to her other teammate. Niji was standing against a tree with his arms crossed and a thoughtful look on his face. She felt relieved that Niji wasn't being rude to them, though his superiority complex wasn't fully gone. She guessed that Naruto had had a positive impact on him. Ino looked at the other side of the clearing and saw Naruto writing on a small paper. "What is he doing?" she wondered as she watched the blonde continue to write. A thought struck Ino and her eyes widened. Could it be that he was writing a letter to someone? Did he meet another girl while he was away? The kunoichi shook her head, trying to rid herself of the thought. There was no way that someone else liked Naruto like that, was there? She shyly made her way over to Naruto, hoping to get to the bottom of what the blonde was doing. "Hey Naruto," she greeted with a smile. The blonde looked up from his work to Ino with a questioning look on his face. "What are you doing?" Naruto turned back to his seal and put on his serious face. "I'm working on a seal that will help me take some of the weird chakra Niji and I found back to Konoha so that it can be analyzed," the blonde explained as he stroked the paper with his brush. Ino sighed in relief, happy that nobody had beaten her to Naruto yet. She sat next to the blonde and watched as he made the seal. "Why do you have to take the chakra anyway?" "Our mission was to destroy the sound base after getting some research papers," she asked in confusion. Naruto shook his head as he worked on the seal. The mission was to gather evidence of something called the Cursed Seal of Heaven. He gave us a rundown of what the chakra it emits is like, and the leftover chakra around this place is similar to it, he informed Ino as he sighed happily and put the brush and ink away. We still have some time to rest, so I'll just get it before we go. Ino nodded but almost yelped when she felt her chin touch Naruto's shoulder. Just how close was she to the blonde? She turned to the blonde and blushed when she noticed that her face was only inches away from his own. They had probably been too into the conversation to notice their proximity. Naruto noticed that Ino got quiet and turned to see what was wrong with her. That had been a mistake, since when he turned to his right, his lips brushed against Ino's. The two ninja blushed a crimson red before jumping away from each other. The blonde cursed himself for his stupidity but still felt the warmth from Ino's lips on his own. Her lips were soft and he felt breathless when their lips met, but he knew that it was an accident and it wouldn't happen again. Ino kept her gaze away from Naruto and cursed herself for not moving away from the blonde before it was too late. Part of her had wanted an accident of that kind to happen. But when it actually took place, she panicked. His lips on her own had felt like nothing she had ever expected from a kiss. Her heart had raced faster than ever before, and a large part of her wanted the light kiss to last forever. I think I'll go get the chakra now, Naruto said with a nervous look on his face. He felt as though he had put their friendship in jeopardy by that slip-up. Ino watched him go with a light frown. From the way Naruto acted, he was feeling guilty about what had happened. She was still a little shaken about the light kiss, but she was still able to read him like a book. It hadn't been Naruto's fault, and he was stupid for thinking it was. This proved how his treatment as a kid had affected him. He would blame himself for anything that happened. She had noticed this some time ago and knew that she would need to talk to him the next chance she got. After all, with what she wanted to happen, kissing would be quite normal, and she couldn't have Naruto thinking that the kiss had been a bad thing. Maybe by the time this mission is over, we'll be a couple. Ino giggled at the thought and smiled dreamily. Choji watched Ino from the distance and sighed. Girls, he muttered with a chuckle before going back to drinking water, knowing that a break wouldn't come for some time. Orochimaru and Kabuto walked through a mountainous area. The snake summoner had an amused expression on his face while Karuto's remained calm and collected. They were on their way to one of his hidden bases. Since one of the Sound Four had been captured, he had to find a replacement. It would be risky, but he had the perfect candidate, after having Kabuto take care of those risks, of course. Kabuto, Orochimaru muttered suddenly. Kabuto turned his gaze to the snake summoner. I want you to take care of those things when we get to the base. Very well, Kabuto said with a slight bow. What will we do about Yukon and Sakan? Having them in the leaf is a little too dangerous. Orochimaru chuckled. I'm no fool, Kabuto. I have taken the necessary measures if any of my ninja are captured, he explained with an amused smile. Not one of my ninja knows enough to be a danger to me or my plans. What about me, Lord Orochimaru? The medic asked with a smug look. You're an exception since I've told you about everything, the snake summoner informed with a smirk on his face, but remember that not everything is as it seems. The snake summoner continued on his way with a frowning Kabuto trailing behind him. It was dark when Naruto and his team arrived close to their destination. The blonde stood on a tree branch with his team standing behind of him waiting for instructions. A small mountain could be seen in the distance with trees all around it. It seemed like a normal place, but on closer inspection it had many chakra signatures scattered around it. Some were near the mountain while, thanks to Niji's Byakugan, they had found out that there were even more inside of the mountain. This meant that the information Naruto had received was accurate. This mountain did in fact house one of the Sound's bases. The blonde turned an eye to his team and saw the state they were in. Choji and Ino looked exhausted while Niji looked a little better than them but not good enough to put up much of a fight. Naruto knew he was not much better since it had been a long trip and knew that they would need to rest for the night. The trees in the area covered them from view and no chakra signature was too close. He guessed that they would be able to rest in this place since it looked relatively safe. We'll set camp here, Naruto instructed as he dropped from the tree and landed on the ground with no trouble. The other followed his lead and landed on the ground behind him. You can eat if you want, but if you need to make a fire, then tell me. We will keep watches of 3 hours after we go to sleep. I'll keep the first watch, Niji the second, Choji the third, and Ino the fourth. Very well, Niji sighed out as he sat on the ground with a tired look on his face. It's finally eating time, Choji declared cheerfully as he took out a bag of chips and several rice balls from the backpack he had brought for the mission. Ino sighed happily as sat against a tree and reached into her backpack. She took out a plastic container with stew her mom had made her the night before. It was a little weird to have stew as dinner, but her mom told her that it was so she would have something made with love on her mission. She smiled at the memory and opened the container but frowned when she noticed it was cold. A fire would be needed to heat the soup, and she knew that in order to do so she would need to speak with Naruto, which would be really awkward. Naruto sighed as he watched his team. Tomorrow would be a dangerous day, and he hoped not to have anyone get hurt, but knew that the chances of that would be slim. They were going into an enemy base after all. He dismissed those thoughts and took out a scroll from one of the pockets on his Chunin vest. The scroll opened to reveal various cups of instant ramen. He licked his lips in anticipation and knew that he would need to make a small fire that wouldn't give out their location, meaning that the fire would have to be made away from camp. He prepared to leave but froze when he saw Ino walking over to him with a blush on her face. Naruto, Ino said in an attempt to get his attention. The blonde threw her a questioning look and his eyes widened when he noticed what she had on her hand. I need a fire to heat my food. The blonde inwardly groaned at his luck, or lack thereof, and threw Ino a nervous smile. Don't worry, Ino, I kinda have to heat my ramen, he confessed before getting a little serious. We have to make the fire away from camp. Okay, Ino agreed with a light blush adorning her cheeks. It was still a little awkward around Naruto, but she still had to talk to him. Having him think that she hadn't felt anything about the small kiss would make him think that she wanted nothing to do with him. Naruto nodded and turned to Choji and Niji. Ino and I are going to make a fire away from camp. If you have anything you need to heat up, then come with us, the blonde instructed. The food I brought doesn't need to be heated since I thought ahead of time, unlike some people, Niji said with a smirk on his face. Naruto growled at that before turning to Choji. He didn't really need an answer from him since the genin was stuffing his face with his food. The blonde turned to Ino and motioned for her to follow him before jumping up a tree and moving away from the camp with Ino in tow. The blonde kept his eyes open as he leapt from tree to tree. He would need a place that wouldn't make the fire too visible, also taking into account the distance away from camp. He saw a cave in the distance and thought of making the fire there, but decided against it since if there was any kind of dangerous animal, then they would make unnecessary noise that would alert the enemy of their location. The blonde saw a clearing in the distance and decided on using it for the fire since it was far away from camp and he would be able to keep the smoke from giving their location by using wind manipulation. The blonde turned to face Ino and pointed at the clearing with a nod. Ino nodded back and watched as Naruto jumped down from a tree and landed on the clearing. The kunoichi followed after him and looked around the area. It had plain ground and not many grass. She assumed that this place would do. I'll get some firewood to burn, Naruto informed Ino as he walked towards the forest. I'll be back soon. Ino smiled as she watched Naruto leave. Things were starting to go back to normal between them, even though there was still an air of awkwardness around them. She sat on the ground and waited for the blonde to return. She only hoped that he would be back soon since she felt a little uneasy being alone near an enemy base. Shikamaru groaned as he watched his team. His team had consisted of Kiba, Lee, and Shino. The Chunin didn't really mind Shino since he would be quiet most of the time, but for some reason Kiba and Lee wouldn't shut up. They were currently sitting around a fire somewhere south of Konoha. One of the Sound's bases was located only a few miles away, and they would be raiding the place the following morning. What motivation! Lee exclaimed in happiness, if you and Akamaru work so well, then I'll find a dog myself and train it until we are better than you. If I don't, then I'll run 100 laps around Konoha on my hands. Shikamaru frowned from his spot across Kiba and Lee. The two genin had been talking about their fighting skills and how they would rise through the ranks of the village. What did I do to deserve this? The lazy genius thought with a grimace. They're quite loud, Shino pointed out from his spot next to Shikamaru. The Chunin had a look of annoyance on his face, showing that he wasn't entirely happy with his team. You will get used to it. Whenever my team went out for missions, Kiba would always be really loud, saying that he was talking for the team since none of us were really outspoken. Shikamaru sighed. I wouldn't have minded being on your team instead of Kiba. It would have been peaceful to have a team with calm people, he admitted with a frown on his face. Remembering his own team, I had to put up with Ino of all people. She would never give our ears a rest, and to make things worse she brought Naruto with her after a while. They're good people and friends to have, but the two of them are way too troublesome. I can imagine, Shino agreed, knowing that he too wouldn't enjoy having such a loud team. Shikamaru suddenly laid on the ground and yawned. I'm going to sleep for now. We'll need all our strength tomorrow, he explained. Make sure to wake me when your watch is over. Shino nodded before hearing snoring. He snapped his head towards Shikamaru and sweat dropped. Only the lazy Chunin would be able to sleep that quickly. There was an awkward silence as a bonfire heated Naruto and Ino's food. The two blondes were still a little shaken about the kiss, though Ino still tried to make conversation from time to time. Those conversations would only end in awkward silences, something the two hated. Their friendship wasn't supposed to be awkward. The two were usually always talking each other's ears off and would know what each other was thinking. Finally, Naruto muttered as he took his final cup of ramen away from the bonfire and opened it to reveal the godly contents. His mouth watered when the smell of ramen hit his nostrils before he took out a pair of chopsticks he had sealed with the ramen and began to eat. Ino watched him with a small smile before taking her stew away from the fire. She blew on it before grabbing a pair of chopsticks her mother had put on the container. A smile made its way to her face as she ate her food. Her mom had been right. Having a home-cooked meal was better than having anything else any day. Nothing could ever beat what a mother had cooked for her children. Her thoughts caught up with her, and she frowned. Sadness washed through her when she gazed at the blonde. He had been an orphan and had nobody to make him a home-cooked meal. A smile made its way to her face as an idea struck her. Naruto ate his ramen in silence. Nothing could really beat Ichiraku's ramen, but it would do for now. It was still good ramen after all. As the blonde opened his mouth to put his chopsticks to his lips, another pair of chopsticks suddenly entered his mouth. He turned to Ino with the chopsticks still in his mouth. She only smiled at him as she took the chopsticks away. The blonde started to chew whatever Ino had given him and smiled in contempt when he tasted it. How is it? Ino asked with a smile. Naruto finished swallowing his food and smiled. It was great. What was it? He asked with a grin. It was some leftover stew my mom made yesterday, she informed with a gentle smile on her face. I just thought that you would want something made rather than bought. Thanks, Ino, Naruto said with a look of appreciation on his face. Ino smiled back and knew that it was the perfect time to talk to Naruto. She knew that an opportunity like this wouldn't come again on this mission. I have to tell you something, Naruto, Ino said with a light blush on her face, her eyes bearing into Naruto's. The blonde in turn nodded with his gaze never leaving Ino's. It's about the thing that happened earlier. Naruto blushed remembering the incident and looked away from Ino. I'm sorry I did that, he apologized with sadness reflected on his blue eyes. It was an accident and I know that it was kind of my FAU-no. Ino interjected a little louder than she wanted. She composed herself and looked at Naruto with a sad smile. I don't want you to think it was your fault. It was both of our faults and besides, it's not like I didn't want it to happen. What? Naruto gasped out in disbelief. Ino blushed but didn't look away from the blonde, trying to show him that she was serious. To tell you the truth, I've liked you as more than a friend for some time, but only realized it recently. Naruto blushed and looked into Ino's eyes. He had no idea what to say but knew that he should say something in order for Ino not to get the wrong idea. I think I feel the same, he finally admitted after a moment of silence. When I left with Jiraiya-sensei, I kept on going over what I really felt about you until I finally realized it one day. Ino smiled with happy tears welling up on her eyes. Naruto felt the same way she did. She had feared that he would reject her, but that fear had been proven wrong. "And Naruto," she muttered before throwing her arms around him and resting her head on his chest. Naruto smiled and held Ino closer to him. It felt right to hold her so close on his arms. She felt soft against his touch and her hair smelt of wildflowers, making him crazy. He really didn't know what was going to happen from then on, but at the moment didn't really care. He just focused on returning Ino's embrace and melting into her warmth. "Hey Naruto," Ino muttered as she moved her head away from the blonde's chest in order to look at him. Before the blonde could respond, Ino's lips crashed into his. The blonde was taken back at first, but then closed his eyes and returned the kiss. It was an innocent, curious kiss full of love and warmth. Ino felt as if she melted against Naruto's warm embrace, and the feeling of his lips made her heart go wild. The blonde had similar thoughts and found that the feeling of her lips on his made him feel as if nothing really mattered except returning the gesture, making his body feel a warmth he had never felt before. The two finally broke away from the kiss and stared into each other's eyes. "Does this mean you're my boyfriend now?" Ino asked with a small smile on her face. Naruto grinned and put on a thoughtful look. "I don't know, Ino," he began. "If we become a couple, then it means that I'll have to bother you every day from now on." Ino smiled and embraced the blonde with a content sigh. "I think I'll manage to tolerate you, but you'll have to eat at my house more often so that you can get to know my parents a little more," she explained. She giggled when she felt Naruto stiffen at the word parents. She knew of how intimidating her dad was when it came to boys. "Don't worry, Naruto, my parents like you. As long as your dad doesn't kill me, I'll be okay," Naruto said with a smile on his face. He pulled away from the hug and stood up before offering his hand to Ino. "We have to get back now. We've been gone too long and the others might start to worry." Ino nodded as she took Naruto's hand and stood up. "We don't want them to search around here with no idea where they're going," she agreed, "but you'll be taking me on a date when we get back to the village." Naruto chuckled. "Fine, but you're still going to buy me my ramen," he said with a mischievous grin on his face. Ino crossed her arms and pouted, making the blonde chuckle. "There's one more thing, Ino," the blonde continued with a serious look on his face. Ino gave him a questioning look before the blonde pointed at the mountain that stood in the distance. "We're still in the middle of a mission. Make sure not to tell anyone about us just yet, since it would only distract the team. Wait until the mission is over to tell them. I don't want an enemy ninja overhearing us." "You're right," Ino said with a nod before breaking into a grin. "That just means that we'll just have to finish the mission a lot faster then." "Right," Naruto agreed as he took Ino's hand on his and began to go back to camp. The two felt happy about their new relationship and couldn't wait until the mission was over so that they could spend more time together. The next morning saw Naruto and his team getting ready to enter the sound base. They stood hidden among the trees and saw a group of ninja guarding the mountain. After waking up, the group had made their way to the mountain and had come to a spot after Niji had seen a group of ninja close by. The ninja didn't wear headbands, hiding their village's identity, and were presumably genin level. "You guys wait here," Naruto whispered to his team. "There's only 3 of them. I'll take care of them before they can alert anyone. Make sure to take out any other ninja that comes this way." The group nodded in understanding as the blonde took out his blade. The 3 enemy ninja were watching over the mountain, planning on killing anyone that got a little too close. They were anxious to kill someone as a kind of goodbye gift, since their leader had informed them that they would be abandoning the base soon. They really didn't care, since it only meant that they would get to torture more people wherever they were moved to. The sound of rustling leaves was heard and the 3 turned towards the source of the sound, but finding nothing. "Let's go!" one of the ninja began, but didn't finish as a blade ran through his throat. The 2 ninja watched their ally go down before they launched at the culprit. One of them threw a punch, but the blonde met it with his blade, slicing through the man's fist and making him cry in pain. The other ninja threw a kick that was easily parried by Naruto's left shoulder before spinning towards the man and delivering a strong backhand with his left hand. The 2 ninja recovered from the attack and prepared for the attack, but were thrown off when the blonde jumped in the air before disappearing. The two sound ninja looked around for any sign of the blonde, but found none. He had simply vanished into thin air. The two were suddenly hit by a strong wind coming from the trees. The wind was so strong that the two ninja lost their footing and were blown away. The two ninjas sailed through the air, unaware of the two shadow clones behind them. They could do nothing as the two clones used their blades to cut through them as if they were nothing. The two bodies fell limply on the ground, dead from having their hearts and lungs pierced with such force. Naruto nodded at the clones and watched as they dispelled. There was a pool of blood on the floor and he frowned. Someone would notice this easily, meaning that they had little time to infiltrate the base. The blonde jumped back to the trees and approached his team. "We have to move now," the blonde ordered with a frown. "They'll notice the disappearance of those three, so we have to get moving." "Got it," the three genins said with serious expressions. "Let's go," Naruto said as he ran at the mountain. When they got close enough, they noticed that it had a series of caves, Niji. On it, Niji responded as he activated his Byakugan. He looked around for a few moments before deactivating it. There don't appear to be any ninja around those caves. The chakra signatures are coming from deeper inside. Naruto nodded in understanding. "Good," he muttered with a serious look on his face. "I'm sure that the caves are filled with traps, so I'll get a group of shadow clones to lead the way. We'll be going the same way, since we'll need the clones to take care of the traps." "What will we do when we get to the enemy ninja?" Choji asked. "You kill them," Naruto responded in a calm tone. "There'll be too much trouble if left alive." "Wait, what?" Choji asked in shock. Niji frowned at the genin. "You're a ninja, so you're expected to kill." Naruto's right, these ninja are enemies of the leaf and are too dangerous to be left alive. "Let's get going," Naruto said as he made a couple of shadow clones and had them lead the group of ninja into one of the caves. "Let's get this over with," the blonde thought with a frown as the group of ninja walked through the cave. Shikamaru put on a look of concentration as he analyzed the situation. His team was standing behind him, completely silent and waiting for instructions. Sound ninja stood in front of what Shikamaru assumed to be the base they had to destroy. Staying hidden and setting explosives throughout the base would be the best way to accomplish the mission, but the ninja guarding the base would be a problem. Those two ninja would need to be killed. There was no other way. He had killed before and found it to be troublesome but necessary when it came down to it. He could only guess when it came to his team's experiences, but hoped that they wouldn't be too bothered by killing. The lazy Chunin faced his team with a serious expression. "This is the plan," he began. "Lee, I want you to take care of the two ninja in the entryway. Those two have to be killed. We can't afford to knock them out and risking them waking up later on." Lee nodded with a grim look on his face. "I know that it is most unyouthful to do this, but I must do it for the mission," he declared with a thumbs up. "Do not worry, Shikamaru, I'll get this done." Shikamaru nodded. "After that we'll go inside the base as quietly as possible. If any ninja spots you, then you kill them on the spot, or we'll be slowed down and forced to face a mob of ninja," he instructed with a frown. His team nodded at him with mixed emotions. He could tell that Kiba hadn't killed before while Shino looked indifferent. He assumed that the bug user had killed before. The lazy Chunin looked at the enemy ninja and frowned. Being a Chunin was too troublesome, but he still had a job to do. With a sigh, Shikamaru faced Lee and gave him a nod. "Go." Shikamaru kept a steady gaze on the scene in front of him. Two sound ninjas stood in front of what he knew was the sound base they had been assigned to. The two enemy ninja had their hands near their kunai pouch, ready for any incoming attack. If the first part of his plan was going to work, then he would need to actually try. Though troublesome, it would keep them alive and guarantee a successful mission. From his spot on the shadows, he saw Lee approaching the ninja from their blind side. Time for the plan to take effect. Shadow Possession Jutsu, the Chunin muttered as shadows extended from around him and launched at the two unsuspecting sound ninja. He held the jutsu in place as Lee charged at the enemy ninja. The two sound ninja noticed that they could not move and began to struggle before they opened their mouths to alert the others, but before they could utter a single noise, a ferocious kick met their faces, instantly snapping their necks, before falling limply on the ground. The green-clad genin turned back to Shikamaru and gave him a thumbs up, showing everything was clear for the moment. Good job, Lee, praised Shikamaru as he got out of his hiding spot, followed by the rest of his team, Kiba and Shino. Part 2 of the plan will go into effect now. Remember to keep your heads up and walk in the shadows. Kiba hung his head with a loud sigh. And here I thought we were going to kick some ass, he complained with Akamaru barking in agreement. Can't we at least fight a few of them? It would be unwise to get into a meaningless fight, Shino advised in a calm voice. We're against the odds here. If we are located, then our mission will be put in jeopardy. He's right, and besides, when would I ever listen to a hasty suggestion like that? Shikamaru said in annoyance, gaining a glare from Kiba. We've been talking long enough, let's get moving. With that, Shikamaru entered the base before being followed by his team. This is going to be a pain, he thought with a sigh before sharpening his eyes. He had to be on his toes now, and it wasn't the time to be lazy, it was the time to make sure his team succeeded. Naruto walked through Orochimaru's base with a sharpened gaze. His team walked behind him with uneasy expressions, save for Neji, who had his Byakugan active on Naruto's suggestion. It was a typical base with the same snake pattern on the floor and walls, apparently made in the same maze-like way. Overall, it looked like an exact copy of the last base the blonde had been in. The only thing that made it different was the ceiling, since it hadn't been tempered with for fear of a cave-in, he assumed. Being made a chunin and going through what he had made Naruto a lot more cautious than he had been at the beginning of his ninja career. Going into an enemy base without a plan was the last thing he would do, more so if his friends' lives were on the line. He had a clear plan on what to do and planned on leaving the base without too much trouble, but knowing his luck something would go wrong, which is why he was highly on the alert. He had not only been assigned to deal with this base, he still had to deal with another base right after this one. This meant that he didn't have much time to waste since he was on schedule. This will be far enough, Naruto whispered to his team as he stopped walking. The blonde turned to Neji and took a small scroll out of one of the pockets on his chunin vest that contained some explosive tags. They're a little stronger than normal ones since I modified them, so you don't have to use too many. Neji nodded at the chunin with a firm gaze. The blonde proceeded to give similar scrolls to the rest of his team before running a hand through his hair. Don't worry about them exploding after a set amount of time. They won't go off unless I use a hand sign, he explained. The clones that went ahead found a crossroads, so we'll separate for now. There are 3 different paths. Neji and I will go in an individual one while Choji and Ino go together. You'll be accompanied by a clone so that I know any of you get into any kind of trouble. Let's get going. The group agreed, though Ino a little reluctantly. She didn't like the idea of separating from Naruto in a place like this, but knew that it was for the mission. She gazed at the blonde and allowed a small smile to appear on her face. He had changed a lot from when she first met him. He was no longer the loud deadlast of the academy. She now realized that Irika hadn't lied when he told them that everything would change after they became ninja. The blonde was now a ninja who was serious about what he did, but still held that little spark of childlike mischief that she had grown fond of. He was really one of a kind. We'll split up here, Naruto quietly announced. He turned to his team and gave them a grin, showing he had confidence in their abilities. Remember to be careful and meet outside in 30 minutes. If you're not out by then, we'll come look for you. Let's go. With firm nods, the group split up, running through their respective halls. Naruto ran alone while everyone else was accompanied by a clone. They were all keen on being successful on their mission and planned on doing it without much problems. Team Shikamaru walked through a large room with mixed emotions. Shikamaru had a look of concentration on his face, Kiba looked impatient, Lee looked as if he was ready to fight, and Shino looked as calm as ever. It wasn't the most stable team, from all of the crashing personalities, but it would do since they were all shinobi and had to leave their differences behind. They were attaching explosive tags to the walls of the base as they walked. This was to destroy the base when they were done gathering research papers and to easily know the way to the exit. So far, most of the base had been tagged, but they had yet to find any research talking about the cursed seal of heaven. Footsteps echoed from the entryway that led to a hallway that stood on the opposite side of them, causing the group of ninja to stop dead on their tracks. Shikamaru motioned for the group to stay still as he thought of what to do. There was barely any light on the room, giving it enough light for him to control shadows freely. He would need to kill whoever was approaching before he alarmed other enemy ninja. The Chunin turned to his team with a hardened look on his face and gave them a firm nod. Shino nodded in understanding while Lee and Kiba got into their taijutsu stances. As the footsteps grew closer, Shikamaru got into his Shadow Possessions hand sign, Lee into his taijutsu stance, Akamaru jumped down from Kiba's head with a growl, and Shino gathered some of his bugs on his sleeves. A sound ninja could be seen from where Team Shikamaru stood. It was a man with a small beard on his jawed scarred face. He had an eye patch covering his right eye and short black slick hair. He wore white shinobi pants and a brown vest over a mesh shirt, showing many battle scars, and finally his sound headband hung loosely from his neck. The man crossed his arms and smirked at the group. "So you're the ones that have sneaking around here," he sneered. The group's eyes widened at the revelation. It wasn't possible for them to be spotted. They had stayed in the shadows all the time and hadn't made a single sound. There was no way that they could have been spotted. "I bet you're thinking," the man began with an amused expression on his face, "how did he see us, am I right?" Shikamaru frowned. "Whatever," he sighed out with a smirk making its way to his face, "I already have you." A shadow stretched from the lazy Chunin and latched itself to the man's. "Can't we just fight it out for once?" Kiba complained with a sigh. "Don't tell me we don't get to fight again?" The man's smirk grew before he slowly balled his right hand into a fist. "Don't worry, you will." The man began to flex his body, making Shikamaru wince and struggle to keep control on him. "Attack now!" Shikamaru ordered with a yell. Lee was the first one to charge at the ninja with his right fist held back, ready to strike at the man. As he ran, he suddenly felt his foot connect with a kind of switch before his eyes widened. A horde of kunai launched at Lee from one of the room's walls. The room was clearly full of traps. He quickly jumped away from the kunai, but one of them managed to stab into his left leg. A groan of pain escaped his lips as he landed on the floor. It had probably struck a nerve, meaning that he wouldn't be able to put up a fight. Bugs suddenly launched at the immobilized man, but before they could get close, Kiba charged at the man with a kunai on hand. "Don't!" Shikamaru exclaimed as his hold on the man finally gave out. The man smirked and charged at Kiba in an incredible speed. The Inuzuka brought up his kunai to meet the man on the clash, but didn't expect him to catch his fist before it got too close. A loud scream of pain echoed throughout the room as the man's fist met Kiba's face in a powerful punch that knocked the genin back a couple of feet. Before he could get away, the man took hold of Kiba's ankle and threw him against one of the room's walls in a show of pure strength. Kiba gasped in pain as his back made contact with the wall before falling to the floor with a groan. The man smirked at his work and charged at the semi-conscious team, but his eyes widened when his body refused to move. He managed to move his head back to see Shikamaru's shadow latched onto his own. "I've gotten out once before, what makes you think I won't do it again?" the man pointed out in amusement. Shikamaru smirked. "I didn't plan on holding you in place for more than a few seconds," he responded while struggling to keep his jutsu in place. "You seem to have forgotten that I was also fighting," Shino said as he appeared next to the man with a cloud of bugs on his back. "Now you'll see that it is unwise to underestimate an enemy." The bugs launched at the man and latched into his skin, making him cry in pain. "Shino, get Kiba," Shikamaru gasped out through pants. "I'll take Lee. I know that your bugs won't hold up for long, so let's get going." There were no research papers. "We're blowing this place down." "Let's," Shino agreed as he ran to Kiba's fallen form. "You okay?" Shikamaru asked Lee once he approached him. Lee looked up at Shikamaru and grinned. "I will be okay, but I don't think I'll be able to run as fast as I usually do," he said apologetically. The lazy genius nodded and the two moved to leave the room. Shino was waiting for them on the entryway with an unconscious Kiba on his shoulders. Shikamaru gave him a nod and the group ran out of the base, ignoring the cries of pain coming from the man. "There," Ino happily said as she put an explosive tag on a wall. Choji, and the Naruto clone had been setting up the explosive tags while looking for any kind of research. So far there was no sign of any documentation, though they had come across some rather disturbing experiments. Choji nodded. That's it for the tags, let's go back outside. The 30 minutes will be over soon, he suggested. Right, Ino agreed with a nod before turning to the Naruto clone. Any news on Naruto? The clone got a tick mark on his head and gritted his teeth. How many times do I have to tell you? I cannot see what the boss is seeing, he growled out. Fine. Ino snapped with a frown. Guys. Choji muttered as he pointed at the end of the hallway. Ino and the Naruto clone looked to where the genin was pointing and their eyes widened. In front of them stood a woman with a staff on her hands. The woman wore light blue shinobi pants with black ninja sandals. She had a red battle kimono on with a black belt holding it in place. She had mid-back black hair and dark black eyes with half of her face covered with a white mask. Oh, don't mind me, please continue. It's very entertaining anyway, the woman urged with amusement on her voice. What do we do? Choji whispered to the Naruto clone. We have to take her down, it responded with a frown on its face. I won't be able to fight much since I'll be out after one hit, but I'll try to distract her whenever I can. How cute, the woman mockingly said. Don't tell me you're whispering about a plan to kill me. Not at all, the Naruto clone responded with a bored look. We were just talking about the weather, missions, and average pay. A very calm conversation, don't you think? The woman shook her head and twirled the staff above her head. Let's see how calm you are with this. She brought the staff down on the ground. It was quiet for a second before the ground started to shake and rocks came out of the floor before launching at them. Body expansion jutsu. Choji exclaimed as he stood in front of the two blondes and grew in size until he covered most of the hall. Rocks embedded themselves to his back, causing him to wince in pain. Before he began to shrink back to his normal size and kneel on the floor with pain written all over his face. Choji! Ino and the Naruto clone exclaimed in worry as they kneeled over the genin. Choji managed to throw them a small grin. Don't worry, I'll be fine, he assured. Just take her down for me, will you? You got it, the clone said with a grin. Interesting, the woman said with a frown on her face. He was able to expand his body. Is that a type of bloodline? We don't have to tell you anything, the clone said with a frown. You'll pay for hurting Choji. And what will you do about it? The woman asked as she licked her lips in anticipation of a fight. This? Ino exclaimed as she put a hand around her lips and fired several bullets of water. The woman's eyes narrowed and brought her staff up. As if in a dance, the woman twirled and ducked through the water bullets before using her staff to hit the last balls of water. That was refreshing, she said with a smirk. Ino, remember to keep calm, the clone said with a serious look on its face. You won't be able to find her weaknesses if your head is clouded. Right, Ino said with a nod before putting a hand to her lips. Again with that jutsu, the woman asked with a smirk. Receiving no answer, the woman sighed before holding her staff up. Very well. I'll just take them down again. Water style. Ino focused her water chakra and glared at the enemy kunoichi. Raging waves, a powerful stream of water shot from her mouth, taking the women by surprise. The steam of water struck the woman's chest before knocking her against the wall. Water style, liquid bullets. Ino continued as she fired water bullets at where the women had crashed. The force of the attacks created a small cloud of smoke, blocking the women from view. Let's get going, the clone ordered as it lifted Choji with a grunt and put him on its back. She's probably not down, and this is not the best place to fight her in. Right, Ino said with a nod as she and the clone ran out of the base, leaving a very soaked and angry kunoichi. You will pay for this, the woman growled out as she shakily stood up. Niji arrived to a large room that stood on the edge of the mountain since half of it wasn't covered. He had a clear view of the forest below and noticed that he had gone up a large distance. On his way to this place, he had found some notes on the cursed seal of heaven that he assumed would help whoever was researching it. There wasn't much information save for where it had come from, but he assumed that it would do. Quite a view, came a voice. Niji instantly activated his Byakugan and spotted a man sitting on the railing of the room with his arms crossed. Who are you? He asked as he dropped to his taijutsu stance. Who am I? The man asked himself with a sad smile on his tired face. The man had long grayish-black hair that flowed with the breeze of the room. He had tired black eyes that talked about years of experience and pain. The man wore a long white kimono with dark blue kimono pants covering most of his dark blue ninja sandals. We don't get names. Niji furrowed his eyebrows in confusion. What do you mean we? He asked in confusion. I mean the others that are forced to be here like myself, he explained with a tired smile before chuckling, but the funny thing is that we've lost the sight of it. Sight of what? Niji asked. He had no idea what the man was talking about, but he assumed that any kind of information would help. Sight of what kept us human and not lab rats, the man responded. Due to the things that have been done to us, we don't have most of our original mindset. Now we're only ghosts of our former selves that only live to carry out our orders, some more willingly than others. What orders might that be? Niji asked with his Byakugan active, noticing that the man was beginning to move. Why to kill you, of course, the man calmly said with a gentle smile. Why else do you think I'm waiting for you here? Niji frowned. If that's the way it has to be, then so be it. With that, the genin charged at the man with chakra flaring through his fists. The man chuckled as he ran at Niji while bringing a hand to his side. The Hyuga watched the hand closely as he advanced on the man, but his eyes widened when he saw the man take out a large sword. The man swung the sword at Niji, but he managed to jump over the strike at the last minute. He sailed through the air and took out 2 kunai before throwing them at the man's head, wanting to end the fight before it escalated. The man looked at the incoming projectiles before bringing his sword up and knocking the kunai aside in a show of pure kenjutsu skill. Niji landed on the floor before jumping away from the man, deciding to fight defensively for now. He cursed himself. The sword had thrown him off and knew that it had been a mistake to have been so affected by a simple change on the fight. The man gave no rest and charged at Niji once more. He brought his sword back, preparing to strike, but he never saw the smirk appearing on Niji's face. 8 trigrams palm rotation, the Hyuga began to spin as chakras surrounded his body. The man's eyes widened before he was violently hit all over his body and launched away from the sphere Niji had created. The man landed in a painful thud and gasped in pain, feeling his old bones creak from the impact. He shakily stood up and looked at the youth in front of him. Some part of him believed that new generations were always stronger than the last, but that part of him was long gone. He only lived to follow his master's orders now, and that was what he was going to do. He began to take off his outfit. If he was to defeat the youth, then he would need to give it his all. Niji frowned as he watched the man rip his kimono off to reveal a mesh shirt and blue shinobi pants. The man then took out a liquid from one of his pockets and put it to his lips before taking a big gulp out of it. Violet blue chakra instantly flowed around the man, giving him a look of power. Behold my true power, the man declared with a smirk on his face. I will take you down for my master. I have no choice but to kill him, Niji concluded with a frown on his face. Whatever the man had done was getting dangerous, and he still needed to make it out of the base in 30 minutes. I'll have to go all out. Naruto frowned as he walked up a set of stairs. He really needed to find a way to control his clone's personalities. The clone he had sent with Niji was a talkative one that eventually led the Hyuga to drive a kunai through its head. The blonde knew that he would have done the same, but it was still a rather hasty thing to do. Now I have to finish this up a lot faster, he thought with a frown as he made his way to a large door. It had a stone snake on it that was cold to the touch. The blonde opened the door to find himself in a giant room. It was circular and had no roof. It actually had a view of the sky that made him wonder if he was near the top of the mountain. Shadow clone jutsu, he muttered as 5 clones appeared beside him. You know what to do. Yes boss / kiss my ass, said the clones as they got to work. Naruto's sweat dropped at one of the clones' comments, but ignored it for now. He would have them put an explosive tag around the room so that when they went off most of the mountain's rocks would bury the room. He had not found anything on the cursed seal, but he hoped that somebody else had. Poof! Naruto's eyes widened as he took out his blade and twisted to his left, blocking a large sword with a loud clang. The blonde met eyes with a muscular man with long spiky brown hair and dark brown eyes. He had a long-sleeved white shirt with black shinobi pants. "You're a pretty good kid," the man praised with a smirk, "though not good enough. I have a tradition where I only tell my name to anybody who I deem a challenge. Do you think you'll be able to find out my name?" Naruto chuckled with a smirk. "When I'm through with you, you won't even remember your name." The blonde added chakras to his blade, causing the intertwined blades to catch sparks before Naruto's began to cut the bigger blade. The man frowned and jumped away from the blonde. "So you can add chakra to your blade," the man muttered with a smirk. He held up his sword and watched the large cut it had on the blade. The blonde was no pushover. "What of it?" spat Naruto as he ran through hand signs, wind style, devastation. Wind shot out of his mouth, crashing against the man with a violent gust of air. "Damn," the man muttered as he struggled to stand against the powerful wind. He began to lose his footing before being violently thrown away from the raw power from the wind. He crashed into a wall, but suddenly turned to mud. "A clone?" Naruto asked himself with a gasp. "Correct," said the man behind him with his sword raised. He brought the sword down on the blonde and smirked when he saw it make contact. Poof! The man's eyes widened. "It was a clone," he gasped out in disbelief. "Correct," Naruto said behind the man as he stabbed a kunai to his back, making him scream in pain before kicking him away. "Now tell me what you know about the cursed seal of heaven." "Why would I do that?" the man asked with a smirk on his face as he took out the kunai from his back. "Why would I stop a fight like this? What the hell is wrong with you?" Naruto growled with a frown. The man didn't answer but charged at the blonde with his large 7-feet sword. He brought it down on the blonde, making him block with his blade, but he suddenly spun to his right and threw his sword in the air. The sword sailed through the air as the man spun behind Naruto. The blonde threw a punch at the man, but he simply took the hit without a wince. Naruto's eyes widened and threw another punch with the same result. "What is this guy made of?" The man smirked as he caught the blade and struck Naruto in the head with the blunt end of the sword, making him grit his teeth in pain. The man didn't let up and punched at Naruto's chest, but the blonde proved to be too fast and jumped over the kick only to be punched away by the man's left fist. Naruto fell to the floor but rolled with the fall and stood back up before launching at the man. He added chakra to his blade and swung at the man with his right fist. The man dodged the strike, but the blonde infused more chakra onto the blade and managed to cut the man on the ribs, making his smirk grow wider. "That's it," the man cheered Naruto on with a smirk as he threw a kick. Naruto moved with the blow to soften the impact, but still winced from the force behind the blow. He then jumped away from the man and dropped into his taijutsu style. He had been training on implementing Asuma's blade to the Toad taijutsu style. The blonde assumed that it was time to see the results of that training since the Toad taijutsu style was a lot faster than the one he used with Asuma's blade. "Isamu," the man said with an exited smirk playing on his face. "What?" Naruto deadpanned with a frown. "My name," the man began as he charged at Naruto with his blade extended. Naruto narrowed his eyes as infused chakra onto his blade and charged at the man. The two blades met in a loud clang followed by sparks coming from the two blades grinding against each other. "Is Isamu?" "Light it up," Shikamaru ordered with a firm nod. He, Lee and Shino, with an unconscious Kiba on his back, stood outside of the base. A single explosive tag could be seen in the entrance, showing that part 2 of their plan had been accomplished, though there had been a setback since they didn't plan on being found. "Understood," Shino calmly stated as he took out a kunai with an explosive tag. Wrapped around the handle. With a flick of his wrist he sent the kunai flying. The kunai sailed through the air with a burning paper sound before crashing into the base's entrance. Boom! The explosive tag detonated in a large explosion that set off the rest of the tags around the base, creating a massive explosion that kicked up dust that clouded the area. Rocks, walls, and chunks of metal could be seen crumbling down and sailing through the air. "Let's get out of here," Shikamaru urgently said as he ran away from the massive explosion. Standing next to an exploding base hadn't been his brightest idea. He was followed by his team into an area they deemed as secure and waited for the aftermath of the explosion to die down in order for them to make sure that not even a small part of the base stood. Looks like it's OV. Shikamaru started but trailed off when he saw a small flicker of movement on the cloud of smoke. What's wrong? Shino asked in slight concern. Shikamaru frowned and took out a kunai. Watch yourselves, he ordered. Before Shino could ask what was going on, a figure jumped out of the smoke. Damn you, roared the figure as it landed in front of the team. Lee gasped when he saw that it was the man they had been fighting. If he survived an explosion like that, then they would be in trouble. Shikamaru was having similar thoughts but didn't voice them. He took in the appearance of the man and knew that maybe he wouldn't be too dangerous. The man was badly cut all over his body, he bled from several places, and his eye patch had fallen off. He had his eye closed and black marks could be seen around it. Wait, the lazy Chunin stopped himself when he realized something. Why was he wearing an eye patch if his eye looks intact even though it's closed? He must be hiding something, but what? We can't fight here, Shino voiced. Kiba and Lee are still hurt. It would be best if we put them somewhere safe. Shikamaru nodded, without taking his eyes off the man. Get them to safety. I'll hold him off as long as it takes. Just try to be back soon. It would be too troublesome to die here, he said with a serious look on his face. I'll be back soon, Shino affirmed with a nod as he took hold of Lee and fled the area. You won't be going anywhere, the man roared before jumping after them. Oh no you don't, Shikamaru thought as his shadow stretched beneath his feet and launched at the man. The shadow made contact with the man and held him in place. Shadow possession success. I'm really starting hate your damn jutsu, the man growled as he struggled to get free, forcing his body to move against the powerful hold. Damn it, Shikamaru cursed as the hold on the man began to loosen. It was taking every ounce of his strength and concentration to keep the jutsu active. His eyes widened when the man began to turn towards him in a slow pace. Soon their faces met and the man gave a smirk before opening his closed eye. Niji dodged a chakra-enhanced punch, watching with wide eyes as it broke part of the floor without making contact. Just how much chakra was the man using? The fist made contact with the floor, instantly creating a large crater that shook the entire room, before using his arm for support and throwing a kick at the unsuspecting Hyuga. The kick made contact with Niji's stomach with such strength that it blew him towards the room's wall with a loud crashing sound. Niji fell on the ground with a thud and gritted his teeth in pain. His stomach was in agonizing pain, his back had several cuts from the impact on the wall, and he was struggling to breathe right from the terrible strike. I was careless, Niji thought as he got on his hands and knees. He bent his stomach slightly and felt a surge of pain go through his whole body. He began to cough violently before he vomited blood. This is the power my master gave me, the man said with his mouth in a thin line. You were wrong to have come here. I can't go on, Niji thought as he gasped for air, kneeling next to a small pool of his own blood. Flashes of his team's faces entered his mind, remembering that he still needed to meet them in a few minutes. He had to win and meet his team after all. A Hyuga never broke his word. I have to do this, I only need one attack to win, he thought as he began to stand, feeling his body protest against his wishes. He managed a kneeling position and shifted his weight to his left leg before pushing off of it, beginning to stand. The man watched as Niji stood and frowned, part of him telling him that he didn't want this. He shook his head, that part of him had died long ago and he only lived for his master now. If this kid entered his master's base, then he would have to die, simple as that. With a groan, Niji managed to stand on his 2 feet. He looked at the man in front of him and activated his Byakugan. He would keep his word. I won't lose here, he thought in determination. I have to meet my team. Niji took a deep breath as he walked towards the man. He analyzed the man's chakra coils and knew what he had to do. He broke into a run and took out a pair of kunai. He would need perfect accuracy if he was to do this. Fool, the man muttered with an almost sad look on his old face. Why must the young die? The man's chakra swirled around him before he charged at Niji in an incredible speed. The Hyuga saw the man and spun to his right, now with one kunai on hand before taking another one out of his pouch. The man didn't seem to register this and charged once more, only this time he used chakras to enhance his speed. In an instant the man appeared right in front of Niji with his fist held back, ready for a punch. Niji saw this coming, and before the fist could make contact, he managed to block it with his hand and cut off the chakra being poured into it. The man's eyes widened when he saw the kid catch his punch before he used his left hand to punch him. Niji ducked under the punch and delivered a strong palm strike to the man's stomach, pushing him back enough to give him the time to jump away from him. A single kunai was on his hand before he took out another one. He inwardly smirked when he noted that the man hadn't noticed the lack of kunai. "Give up now, child, and I'll make your death painless," the man suggested with a hint of sympathy on his words. "You'll never beat a Hyuga," Niji retorted with a smirk as he threw a kunai at the man, but he easily dodged the projectile. The man frowned. "I gave you a chance, kid, but I still respect your pride," he admitted before charging at Niji. The Hyuga slipped into his taijutsu style and hardened his gaze. The man threw a punch, but it was easily knocked aside by the genin. Niji responded with a palm strike to the man's left bicep, making him grunt in pain. The man threw a kick, but the Hyuga blocked it with both of his hands, now with no kunai on hand. Chakra left the man's enhanced knee before he used his left hand to punch at Niji. The genin used the knee for leverage and jumped away from the man while taking out two kunai. Before Niji could land on the ground, the man launched at him once more. Niji saw the attack coming and threw the two kunai at the man, making him stop his run to dodge them before charging at him again. This small pause was enough for the Hyuga to land on the ground and duck under the punch that had been aimed at his head. The man kicked at Niji, but he managed to block it with both hands, but couldn't stop the man's fist as it made contact with his chest, pushing him away with less strength than before. What? The man gasped out when he noticed that his punch hadn't had the effect he desired. Niji smirked and pushed the man away with a well-placed kick to his chest. The man grunted in pain and staggered backwards. The kick had probably broken something. He looked at Niji with a frown on his face. He had done something to his body. Something that made him unable to pass chakra to his limbs, but he didn't know what. "You lose," Niji stated with a satisfied smirk on his face as he took a single kunai from his ninja pouch. The man noticed that the kunai had a kind of seal wrapped around the hilt and frowned in confusion. "Now I'll show you." Chakra began to swirl around Niji as a blue light emitted from the kunai, the power of the Hyuga. "We're almost there," the Naruto clone gasped out through pants. It was no easy feat to run with Choji on its back. The clone thanked the original Naruto for having trained in order to handle it. "Good," Ino agreed as the light at the end of the hallway got closer. They had been running away from the woman they had encountered earlier since it wasn't smart to fight her in a place with no much room. Suddenly there was an echo in the hallway, throwing everyone off, before the ground began to shake and pieces of the floor and walls began to break. "Let's get out of here," the clone exclaimed as it ran faster to the exit with Ino in tow. Ino turned back and saw the woman running towards them. She would need to fight her alone since Choji was hurt and the clone would dispel after one hit. "I'll handle her," she told her teammates. What? The clone gasped out in surprise. "Don't worry, just get Choji to safety and I'll try to beat her," Ino assured with a serious look on her face. Don't worry about me, Ino," Choji said as he got off the clone's back, panting slightly. "I was only hit on my back. I'm still able to fight even though it hurt." "What?" the clone roared in rage. "You mean I was carrying you all this time, when you could have just walked?" "That's right," Choji said with a nod. "Damn you," the clone muttered with a clenched fist. "Enough of your comedy act," the woman snapped. "I'll kill you for your insolence." She brought her staff down, but before it could make contact with the ground it was knocked away by a water bullet. "Water style, raging waves," Ino exclaimed as she put a hand around her lips and shooting a powerful stream of water at the woman. The sound ninja saw this coming and jumped away from the attack, but was suddenly hit by a giant fist that threw her away from the two ninja and the clone. "Let's go," the clone ordered as they ran out of the base. I'm going to kill those kids, the woman growled with hate on her visible eye. She brought her left hand to her mask and tore it off her face, unleashing a powerful purple chakra. Clang, the sound of metal on metal echoed through the large room. Naruto and Isamu locked blades with sparks coming from the power behind them. Wind chakra poured around the blonde's blade and had begun to cut through the man's large sword. The man noticed this and used his free hand to slap Naruto away. The blonde was pushed away from the sound ninja and steadied the man. Isamu would surely win at strength, but he still had the upper hand since his chakra-enhanced blade could overpower the man's bigger blade. The man's sword had a simple black hilt wrapped in black bandages. A red stone peeked out of the bandages, matching the large red blade of the sword. The blade now had many cuts, but it would still hold from the looks of things. "You're a fun guy," Isamu admitted with a smirk on his face. He stabbed the sword into the ground and began to stretch his arms. "It's been a while since I fought someone who could put up a fight. By the vest you wear, I assume you're a chunin, correct? How do you know about ranks?" Naruto interrogated with a frown on his face. "Could it be that you were a ninja before?" Isamu smirked and put his right hand on the handle of his sword. "You're pretty sharp to have guessed that," he praised. "I was a ninja once upon a time, but I never really belonged there. My superiors often scolded me since I didn't believe in protecting the weak. I've always believed that a weak person is of no use. They might as well be dead. Lord Orochimaru believes this as well, which is why I follow him in the first place, but when the time comes I'll kill him and be the new leader of Sound." Naruto frowned. "You're a really screwed up person, did you know that?" he asked as he dropped into his taijutsu stance. Isamu only smirked before taking the sword out of the ground and charging at Naruto. The blonde infused chakra onto his blade and ran at the man. Both ninja brought their blades forward, but before they could make contact, the blonde sidestepped with a small jump before launching at the man once more. The sound ninja could do nothing as the blonde's blade cut through his right ribcage. Blood splattered out of the wound as Naruto kicked at the wound. The man cried in pain before swinging his sword at Naruto. The blonde saw the attack and managed to jump over it, but not without receiving a cut on his right leg. He twisted in the air and threw a smoke bomb at the man's face, causing Isamu to break into a fit of coughs as smoke filled the area, blocking Naruto from view. "Damn it!" Isamu cursed as he tried to find the blonde through the smoke. "Where did he go?" "I'm over here," came Naruto's voice from behind the man, making him turn around. "No, I'm here," his voice came again, but now from Isamu's right. The sound ninja looked around in confusion. How was the blonde moving so fast? "I'm here." "No, here." "I'm over here, you bastard." "You need to calm down." "What?" "I'm always calm." "Not you." "Him." "Me?" "You idiot, I'm not even loud." "There's more than one?" Isamu asked himself, is he using clones? Soon the smoke was cleared from the area, revealing hundreds of Naruto clones surrounding him. Isamu gulped. From the looks of things they were solid clones, and it would be dangerous to fight them all. How can he use so many? Isamu gasped in disbelief. "We're one of a kind," the clones exclaimed. "Get him," the original Naruto ordered from the wall he stood at with his arms crossed. "All right," they cheered as they launched at the man in a frenzy of punches and kicks. "I have to get back to the others," Naruto thought as he watched his clones attack the man. "I'm not sure if my clones will manage to finish him, though." Suddenly a dark purple chakra erupted from the man, instantly dispelling all the clones that surrounded him. "What the hell is that?" Naruto asked himself as he watched the chakra illuminate the room. The sound ninja watched as blue chakra flared around Niji. The kunai he gripped on his right hand glowed a blue color before shooting a beam of light behind the man. He turned around to see that the light had enveloped one of the kunai the Hyuga had scattered across the room. A beam of light shot out of the discarded kunai and hit another kunai Niji had thrown. The man's eyes widened. Niji had planned this all along. He watched as one by one the 7 discarded kunai were enveloped and connected by a blue light. From the looks of things he was surrounded by the blue streams of light. He tried to move, but found that he couldn't. It was as if his body was being constricted. His eyes widened when the blue light turned a deep green color. Whatever it was wouldn't be good. It's a seal, Niji explained in a calm voice. This is one of the Hyuga secret jutsu that were made with the aid of sealing. It's extremely hard to set one up, but its power makes up for that setback. It first pushes gravity against you from where the seals, or kunai in this case, are located, making it impossible for you to move since they're all pushing against you. How does this attack end? The man grimly asked. The chakra around the seals bursts in a high temperature that will kill a person on the spot, Niji informed with a serious expression on his face. You were indeed strong, but it seems as if I prevailed on this fight. The man could do nothing but stare at the young ninja in front of him. It was indeed true that the new generations were always better than the previous ones. Part of him felt glad to see such promising youth, while the other was ashamed at his inability to fulfill his master's wishes. I love you, Grandpa. The image of a young boy with jet black hair filled the man's thoughts, reminding him of his past life. Tears filled his old eyes, memories coming back to him. Memories of the old days that held his most painful and happy moments. Memories that he had thrown away when he had come to Orochimaru in an attempt to ease his pain. At least, I had a purpose back then. He glanced at Niji through teary eyes and smiled. I'm glad. I'll be able to see my grandson again. The green light enveloped the area where the man had been standing, lighting up the whole room from the burst of churka. Niji watched the attack with a calm look. It had been his duty as a ninja to kill the man, and he had seen the look the man had before dying. It was the look of a man that was happy with his fate, as if he were glad to leave this world. The light died down, revealing that nothing remained of the man. Part of the floor had melted and the ground had a deep red glow from the high temperature of the attack. Niji gave one last glance at the area before turning to leave. His mission had been successful. Ino panted as she leaned against a tree. Next to her was Choji with a tired look on his face and the Naruto clone that kept a steady gaze on the base's entrance. There was no doubt that the woman would be coming, so it was best to rest as much as they could before fighting her again. The clone wouldn't need any rest since it was just a mass of chakra. She gazed at the clone and frowned. There was a cut on the clone's left leg and it looked kind of deep. A thought entered her mind and she gasped. Is Naruto okay? She asked the clone with a worried look. The clone sighed. I told you before, I can't see what he sees, it explained with an annoyed look. Then why is there a cut on your leg? Ino asked with a frown. The clone looked at its left leg and found a deep cut. He put some pressure on the cut and winced. What? What happened to me? It yelped. See, could it be that I'm the real one and yet I haven't noticed it? Am I insane now from the constant use of clones? Calm down, Ino said with a sigh. I'll just ask Naruto later. The clone looked a little agitated but nodded regardless. Ino, look. Choji exclaimed in shock as he pointed at the base. Ino quickly turned around to see a purple light coming from the entryway. What is that? Ino wondered out loud. A figure covered in purple chakra exited the base in a slow pace. Ino squinted her eyes to make out the figure and her eyes widened when she noticed who it was. It was the same woman she had been fighting, but something was obviously off. The chakra died down to reveal the woman's new appearance. She now had darker skin, her fingernails had grown into claws, the left side of her face resembled a snake's head, her black hair was spikier and a tail had grown out of her lower back. The woman's black eyes landed on Ino before smirking in amusement. She wouldn't go easy on the kids anymore. This looks bad, the clone muttered with a frown before facing the two genin. I'll try to land a hit on her. I'm probably going to get dispelled, so hit her when you see an opening. The boss will probably get here after he sees you're in trouble. Right, Choji agreed with a nod. The clone nodded at them with an affirmative smile before charging at the woman with its blade out. The sound ninja saw this and extended her right arm towards the clone. Purple chakra launched out of her hand, shooting towards the clone. The clone saw the chakra coming and jumped high in the air to avoid being hit. It then took out a kunai and launched it at the woman, but it was blown away by the intensity of the purple chakra. The woman jumped straight at the clone with her fist held back, concentrating the foul chakra onto her fist. She held a smirk on her face, but it left her face when she noticed the clone had a smirk of its own. The sound of burning paper came from the clone, and her eyes widened when she saw the exploding tag attached to the clone's vest. Boom Ino watched as the clone exploded with a frown. No matter if it had been a clone exploding, she was still a little shaken about watching him die. She was broken out of her thoughts when she saw the woman falling to the ground. How? Choji gasped out in disbelief as he saw the woman flip on the air and land on her feet. She was in a bad condition with the right side of her skin burned and most of her clothes tattered. "You damned brats," the woman screeched in fury. The foul chakra swirled around her in a show of raw power. "I will kill you for this." "This is it," Choji Ino muttered with a serious look on her face. "We have to use our teamwork to win. Hopefully Naruto or Niji will get here to help us later." "Right," Choji said with a frown on his face. "Let's do this." "Ino," Naruto thought as the clone's memories entered his mind. He watched Isamu in front of him with his greatly changed physical appearance. His shirt had been ripped off, his muscles had increased in size, his hair had turned a deep green, and finally his skin had turned a dark gray color. "I have to end this fast or else Ino might get hurt." That woman was easily high Chunin level. "Let's get round 2 started," Isamu announced with a smirk on his face. Naruto frowned and ran through hand signs. Wind style, devastation. Wind shot out of the blonde's mouth and hit the man dead on. Isamu didn't show any sign of struggle and charged at Naruto in a fast speed, making him wonder just how much his power had increased. The blonde watched as Isamu approached and infused chakra onto his blade. The sound ninja brought down his sword to meet the blonde's, but this time they stayed locked in place. Naruto's eyes narrowed at this. His advantage was now gone due to the man's new power. Using his left hand, the blonde charged up a wind ball and slammed it into the intertwined blades, causing Isamu's blade to snap in half. Isamu's eyes widened and screamed in pain when he felt Naruto's blade run through his torso. He tried to move away, but the blonde delivered a hard kick to his chest that made him fall to the ground with a thud. "Shadow Clone Jutsu!" Naruto exclaimed as clones filled the area. The army of clones jumped on top of the sound ninja before Naruto began to run out of the room. He didn't have time to fight the men. "I have to get to Ino now. They won't be able to beat that woman alone," Naruto thought as he sped through the hallways of the base. As he ran, he made a few hand signs and held the ram seal in place. "I'll only use the ones on that room. I don't want that guy to follow me." "Have fun with this bastard," Naruto muttered as he used his chakra to activate the exploding tags he had left on the room. "A Sharingan," Shikamaru thought in alarm as he stared at the man's opened eye. His hold on the man was instantly broken before he launched at the Chunin. The lazy genius took a kunai in hand and threw it at the man, smirking when he saw the man dodge. The man landed in another one of Shikamaru's shadow and was instantly immobilized. "Damn it," the man roared in rage. He began to struggle, but the lazy Chunin was prepared for it now and was able to hold him in position. That wasn't a Sharingan, Shikamaru concluded as he went over thought on his head. The eye he had seen was red, but, unlike the real one, it had 3 small purple triangles around a triangular black pupil. But what was it? He asked himself. His power increased when he uncovered it. Could it be a type of bloodline I haven't heard about? "Damn. You," the man roared as the marks around his right hand began to expand around his face. Shikamaru winced as the man began to apply more force, making it harder to keep him in place. "I'll kill you." Shikamaru struggled to keep control, applying more force on the hold with his hands shaking from the amount of chakra he was using. "Damn it," he muttered with a grimace, "if this keeps up I'll be out of chakra soon." "Then let me assist you," came Shino's voice as he landed near Shikamaru, making the lazy Chunin sigh in relief. "About time you showed up," Shikamaru joked as he kept his jutsu in place. Shino nodded before turning to the man. "I'll take care of him," he muttered as he extended his right hand with bugs flying out of his sleeve. The bugs launched at the immobilized man and began to take his chakra away, making the man scream in pain. You can let him go now, Shino informed when he noticed that Shikamaru was still struggling to keep his jutsu in place. The lazy Chunin let his hold drop and watched as the man screamed in pain from the swarm of bugs, but those screams were silenced when bugs entered his mouth. My bugs will take away all of his chakra, it's over. Good, Shikamaru sighed out with a nod, this was getting way too troublesome. I won't die here, the bug-covered man roared as a vile dark purple chakra surrounded him. Almost instantly, the bugs fled from the man due to the horrible chakra. The man's appearance began to change into a more animalistic one. His skin turned a light gray, his hair turned white and his whole life turned black with 4 small yellow triangles on the middle. What is that? Shikamaru muttered in shock through heavy breathing. The man began with a glare at the 2 ninja. The chakra died down, but the raw power coming from the man could still be felt. Is your end? In an instant, the man appeared next to the 2 shocked ninja. A pair of purple arms came out of his stomach and struck both ninja on their chests. They were thrown away several feet, but before they could regain their footing, the man appeared next to them once more. Another pair of arms came out of his chest and took hold of the 2 ninja in a tight grip. I can't move, Shikamaru cursed as the arm that held him squeezed the life out of him. He could feel some ribs breaking from the tight grip, but couldn't even make the slightest sound of discomfort. Only short gasps came out of his mouth. He threw a glance at Shino and noticed that he was on his same position. You're dead, the man stated in a deeper voice, smirking at the look of pain of his victims. Fong over Fong. The man couldn't react as 2 spinning blurs crashed against his side, making him drop his hold on the 2 ninja. He screamed in pain as he was blown away by the intensity of the attack and crashed through a tree. Kiba and Akamaru landed next to the 2 ninja with content looks on their faces. You didn't think I would actually lay down and let you do all the fighting, Kiba said with a smirk on his face. Shikamaru chuckled and shook his head. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm glad you're here, Kiba, he joked with a smirk on his face. Kiba chuckled in return before turning towards where the man had fallen. The man began to stand with blood dripping down his left arm. He glared at the 3 ninja and gritted his teeth. I'll kill you all, he growled as he began to move towards them, but was suddenly dealt a powerful blow on the stomach by a green blur. He got the wind knocked out of him before he received a roundhouse kick to the face that sent him away. Lee stood in front of the man on his taijutsu stance. Lee? Shino asked in shock. When he had last seen him, he didn't look too good, and now he was standing in front of an enemy. Lee grinned. I could not let my teammates fight alone, he explained. If we're going to fight an enemy, then we'll do it together. Shikamaru grinned. All right then, he watched as the man began to stand with fury on his face. A smirk made its way to the lazy Chunin's face. His whole team was together, and it would be a lot easier to beat the man. Let's end this.
That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.